as it regards to the theater experience, obviously a big thing nowadays is IMAX and 3D, and that's where a lot of studios are making their money. And so there's a recent film that just came out Friday. Today's Monday, Friday, right? The 7th, Interstellar. So this is a film that everyone had these huge Oscar expectations for, and now the reviews, not so kind.
Yeah, well, I think it might be expected because there's going to be some level of blowback with anything that has that much anticipation to it. You're always going to have some segment of the population that's not going to be completely satisfied with it. In this particular case, it happens to be quite a few critics, like me. Not that it's a bad movie, just not that it's just not what I consider worth my time to spend nearly 3 hours in a movie theater for, as far as what I'm getting back from it. So it's interesting, the whole Christopher Nolan fanboy and fangirl audience. Mm-hmm. And I think what happens with a lot of fan-driven types of material like that, whether it's comic books, superheroes, whatever, they end up using online opportunities that really does drive up that anticipation to a degree that can't really be matched. I mean, very few movies could match that kind of anticipation. So it's I think we've seen it times before with like Snakes on a Plane.
Yeah.
Remember when that was going to be like the huge hit of this summer because everybody was talking about it, everybody was joking about it, it had memes, it had everything else going on. It opens up in theaters and nothing, just tanks right away. So I think we get a little bit bamboozled by the technical or technological expertise of the people who can drive these kinds of things. They can make us think there's more people interested in these projects than there actually are. Yeah,
that's interesting because with social media and technology being what it is today, we can look at these reports and say, oh my God, 100 million people have watched the trailer for Interstellar, and there's all this buzz about it online. This thing is going to open huge. But then when it boils around and comes down to it, people are like, eh.
But all it takes is say 2 million people who just have a lot of time on their hands,
right?
Or are really devoted to whatever it is, Interstellar or whatever it might be, and they watch it. They watch that trailer 3-4 times, and all of a sudden, those 2 million people have created 10 million hits. Yeah. So it's very. They're going to eventually. I'm sure they're going to find some way to measure that kind of input from people and be able to translate it into some kind of marketing formula that they can depend upon a little bit more. But it's going to be a while before that happens.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Well, and a film like Interstellar, I feel like I need to put in for some vacation time just to be able to find the time to go spend 3 hours in a theater watching it. I want to see it, and I'm like, 3 hours. When am I going to block 3 hours out of my day?
Well, it's not only that, but it's also the hour or two that you might have to put into the movie afterwards, or maybe in the case of this or Inception, Nolan's previous hit. The extra 3 hours you have to go back and watch it again,
right?
To sort of pick up everything along the way. I just thought Interstellar, I thought was beautifully filmed. Although you got to admit, Gravity did the outer space stuff better in terms of the beauty and the danger and the treacherous conditions in outer space. And also did it in like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Almost half the time.
Let's get Sandra Bullock at 90 minutes in and out, and let's go.
Exactly. So it's not like I really want every movie set in outer space has to be some sort of action Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica type. No. It doesn't need to be that at all. Matter of fact, I'm not a huge science fiction fan. I like science fiction that enables me to think. Most sci-fi movies doesn't allow you to think because they don't give you anything to think about. Nolan gives you too much to chew on.
Right.
I mean, Nolan just takes the whole quantum physics thing and wormholes and black holes and all this kind of stuff and treats it so ponderously and so seriously that it can turn you off of some of the things that are really, really, really astonishing about the movie. Too.
Yeah.
I thought Matthew McConaughey's performance was very good. For what he was called upon to do in that, and you don't usually see. That level of really just emotions. The scene. There's a scene where he is catching up on when he comes out of the situation. He's much older, but his kids are older. And they've sent him over the years video messages, and he's sitting there watching these messages, basically catching up with his kids who are grown up now. And just his face twisted with emotion, and just everything just poured out of them right there. You don't usually see stuff like that in a sci-fi movie. So there are good emotional touchstones there, but then every once in a while they just start droning on, and I feel like I need to pay tuition,
right? Yeah,
to go see the movie rather than just pay for a ticket.
Well, Nolan's first film was called Pi, the numerical.
No, that was Aronofsky.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
yes,
that was
you're
Aronofsky.
right. You're right. Yes.
But see, Aronofsky can also be dense if you look at stuff like what was the one he did with Hugh Jackman? That was The Formula or whatever it was.
I know which one you're talking about.
So he can be a little dense too, but at the same, I mean, even something like Black Swan takes the simple backstage story and elevates it with intrigue, mystery, murkiness, that isn't normal, isn't typical, let's say. So I appreciate filmmakers pushing and trying to pull us along into something, making us experience something more.
Yeah.
Making us think more, making us feel more, making us cry more, laugh more. That's what they're there for, to keep pushing those boundaries. But at the same time, sometimes you can just push a little bit too hard.
Sure.
And I think Nolan has the propensity to do that sometimes.
But at least he's making an effort, because there are a lot of films out there. You go back to those Adam Sandler films or whatever. Where obviously, you don't go to see an Adam Sandler film to think. But there's we could do with a little bit more thinking coming out of Hollywood.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Interstellar, again, people were talking about it as far as Oscar buzz goes. So what are we looking at? Is it too early to talk about awards season already?
I don't think so. We're starting to see after the festivals have started rolling out. You've had Toronto, you've had Telluride, you've had the New York Festival, and you've seen some movies come out of there. Things like Birdman that came out with excellent reviews. The only thing is, when you talk about Oscars and awards and stuff, the ticket sales do matter in there some.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of factors that have to be weighed into what kind of movies these people are going to support, and they're not going to want to support something that nobody has seen or nobody appears to have any intentions of seeing. So it is important that a movie like Birdman gets a little bit of an audience. A movie like Whiplash, that's opening up on the 14th around here, gets enough of that kind of audience. Every year when they have the Best Picture nominees come out and stuff, somebody will always make a big deal about this is one of the lowest grossing Best Picture nominees ever. Okay, fine, but it's still not as low grossing as a lot of the best movies out there that just don't get any kind of an audience.
Well, and that's why they added those 5 extra films. It used to only be 5 films would be nominated for Best Picture. Now we've got 10 films that are nominated for Best Picture, specifically so they can get those, films like The Dark Knight a few years ago that they wanted to have in that conversation.
And didn't make it.
Right, exactly.
That's what they created it for, and then Dark Knight didn't make it, basically. So, but then you'll have some movies like Avatar.
Right.
That will make it too. So, but once again, if you look at the posterity angle too, do we really look at Avatar now, almost 5 years later? Do we really look at it as being that great a movie?
As soon as I saw Avatar, I started calling it Average Tar.
Average.
Such a predictable storyline in that film.
But it was a game changer in terms of the technology,
Yes.
but it didn't have anything else backing it up. And we've seen that technology used in other movies like Interstellar, like Gravity, to a much better end, a much more respectable end.
Yeah, and I'm glad that sort of everybody else's technology is caught up with what Cameron did there, and it's only a matter of time that always happens, because then in hindsight you can look back at it and say, okay, I see why everybody was so gaga over it at the time because of technology, but story wise,
right?
Come on, give me a little something more here.
Right. I'm still much more inclined to like movies that are about human beings,
sure,
and not alien entities. I'm sorry, that's just my particular shtick attitude. We all have our own little tastes, and that's mine.
Yeah, absolutely. So what else do we have? Let's take a look at some of the other films that are kind of in the conversation. We've got.
I'll tell you what, I really like Whiplash. Every year, there's always one or two little independent movie. This is only about a $5.5 million production. That it can come out of nowhere, and I think this movie has that kind of Rocky type of quality to it. Where it can get an audience behind it. It's a very rousing kind of movie, and it's in my review that's going to be in next week. I'm making an allusion to the point, since it's a story about music. I mean, Miles Teller plays an aspiring jazz drummer who's at this academy, this music conservatory, and J.K. Simmons is amazing in this movie. But he is just a ruthless perfectionist who is driving these students practically insane, abusive to them physically, emotionally, mentally. It has that kind of Rocky type of quality to it, where you've got this underdog but at the same time, neither one of these characters are that particularly appealing. Certainly not Simmons, but also Teller's character. So it's one of those movies that really does pull you in, and I would, if I could buy everybody a ticket, just to let them see this movie, and just so they could see what movies are capable of doing as far as just telling a simple story and making it something that after 2 hours you walk out of and you say, man, that was something.
You've already convinced me that I need to go see it now.
Yeah.
So.
I tell you what, the one thing I can say about this movie, what's the most boring part of any concert, especially rock and roll concerts? The drum solo. The drum solo.
Yes.
This movie ends with a drum solo, about a 5-minute, 10-minute drum solo. One of the most thrilling sequences I've seen in a movie this year. Wait till you see it.
Well,
wait till you see it.
Maybe some rock and roll performers should take a little hint from the drum solo in this film. Then, so Boyhood. Boyhood is another one that obviously getting a ton of buzz because of this 12-year process of making the film. I haven't had an opportunity to see it yet. Is it out on VOD yet?
I believe so.
It's on my list.
I believe so. I really do admire the process of making Boyhood. I mean, anybody who devotes himself for 12 years, as Richard Linklater did, and his actors, and his crew, basically, his entire crew, they basically just would meet together for a few days, once a year, and film something and put it together. I admire their dedication. I just don't. I think it needed a little bit more structure than his artistic spirit was going to allow him to have with this experiment that he's working. It's still a little bit more experimental than I think.
A little French New Wave-ish kind of going on there.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Basically, Linklater bet all of his money on the fact that he found this kid at age 6, and this is going to be an interesting kid to follow for 12 years.
Right.
I think the kid's interesting for about the first 6 years, and I think
then he's a teenager. And what are you going to do with him?
As he gets older, he just gets less interesting.
Really,
he doesn't have the direction. He doesn't have anything going on with him except he can pout very well. He's a very convincing pouter. But I liked watching like Patricia Arquette and Ethan Hawke aging through those years. I thought very brave on their part to show themselves gaining weight, losing weight, gaining lines. But once I got past that, the bravery, the courage, the ambition behind it, I just didn't see anything that would make me want to sit there and watch it again. I can admire it, but I can't embrace it.
Sure, it's almost that Avatar kind of thing that we were just talking about. So you're admiring sort of what goes into it, and maybe that sort of colors your thinking a little bit as far as the overall result of it being
certainly a good movie. Certainly one I'd
film.
recommend to people. But when I read things about it being a leading contender, for the awards this year, I have to, sort of like cock my eyebrow.
I've seen it as like number one in the Hollywood Reporter guy, Feinberg, I think his name, on his list of.
Well, I think the Academy over the past few years has sort of indicated, like with the 10 nominations for up to 10 for Best Picture, that they are really interested in what the public thinks. They've got to get those TV ratings.
Sure.
So that's one reason why they had the 10 nominations. You want to get those movies in there that people have seen, that will make them tune in, so that they can sell those advertisements, those commercials for $2 million or whatever they're charging for a 30-second spot. It's I can't see the Oscars really heavily rewarding something like Boyhood, because some people will say, so what?
Yeah.
You've got the old Chariots of Fire type of syndrome.
Right. Yeah, it would beat Raiders of the Lost Ark.
So it's.
Yeah, it's interesting, and the Academy. People think of the Academy. You don't realize it. They are focused on making money. They actually just recently, and this hits home with me. They just recently cut their film festival grant program because they are putting their money into the new Academy Museum that they're building out in Los Angeles. So it's interesting. You have this sort of image of this glorious organization, and not that they're not a glorious organization, but they still are focused on the bottom line, which is dollars.
And they were so strong with their support that they just recently got their tax incentives program refinanced.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't have all the details about that and stuff, but they've seen enough of that money leaking out.
Right.
And they're trying to keep it back home too. So yeah, they are totally about making the money. It's not just all the let's reward the quality and celebrate the aesthetics and all this kind of stuff. No. They want to make some money.
Yeah. Well, so we're coming also into holiday season, so there's going to be some holiday films coming up they're not going to be nominated for Oscars, but are sort of those fun holiday films that people want to see. And one film that's not necessarily a holiday film, but I'm looking forward to is Foxcatcher.
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to see Foxcatcher?
No, I have not. But that one is going to be an Oscar contender.
Yeah, I was in Cannes and missed Foxcatcher there because I was one person too late in line.
I missed Telluride this year. I did not go to Telluride this year. First time I missed in about 9-10 years or so, and it happened to be out there. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Steve Carell, I understand, is just it's a transformative type of performance.
Nothing but good things
playing
about it.
John DuPont, this very emotionally troubled, disturbed. Obviously, he ended up killing somebody.
Yeah.
That's not a spoiler. You can read about it anywhere. But it's Channing Tatum, Mark Ruffalo, both of them being talked up. I'll tell you what, when you see the kinds of, or when you hear, I haven't seen all of them yet, but you talk about, let's say, Carell and that, let's say Simmons and or Teller in Whiplash. I saw Benedict Cumberbatch in the Imitation Game, which I think is like one of those perfectly constructed Oscar movies. It is Oscar bait all over because it's British. Excuse me. It's about World War II. It's based on a true story. It's about a person. It has some social parallels to today because Cumberbatch's character is gay and persecuted for it.
Okay, interesting.
So you have a few things. So it has everything that the Oscars like.
Yeah. Well, and it's fascinating when you see the trailer for that tonally. When I just first see the trailer, or whatever, I immediately think of A Beautiful Mind. Mm-hmm. Is kind of what it makes me think of. So we'll see how that one does. So holiday films. What do we got coming up? What are you looking for? Anything you're looking forward to in the holidays here?
I was not really interested in Into the Woods, the Broadway musical, sort of based on Grimm fairy tales type of thing. I was not really interested until I saw the second trailer that just recently came out. And I love musicals, but this one just didn't hit me before. Now, as they're starting to give you a little bit more of a taste of what it's going to be musically, I'm kind of sold on that one. That's going to be due right around Christmas Day. Meryl Streep, Anna Kendrick, James Corden. I think people are going to be a little bit interested because he's a talented former busker. He was in Begin Again and some other things, but he's going to be taking over for Craig Ferguson on the Late Late Show. So I think there's going to be some curiosity to see who is this guy and what's he doing. But I think people will be surprised at what a nice singer and actor he can be. And of course, Johnny Depp is the big bad wolf. Yeah. So it gives him a chance to dress up as something else weird. He loves doing that. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to Inherent Vice. Okay. Anytime Paul Thomas Anderson puts out a movie, I'm there. Yeah. And typically not disappointed either. So this is based on a book by, I can't remember the guy's name, but they say that his stuff is unpublishable or unfilmable. Unfilmable. But
sounds like a challenge to a filmmaker.
Yeah. Well, especially to somebody like Anderson, but Joaquin Phoenix, Josh Brolin, sort of set in the 1970s L.A. Sort of, it looks a little bit Big Lebowski. Yeah. Which of course has got me hooked right there. Of course. So that looks very interesting also. What else is coming out here?
You got the Hobbit film, of course, the next Hobbit film.
You know what? I luckily, I've been able to skip the first two Hobbit films. The first one...
Third time's a charm?
Colette Bancroft said that she would cover it, because since, of course, she's our book critic, so she's very familiar with Tolkien. And then I dished off the second one to her. When they come up with the third, I'm pretty sure I'll probably dish off the third one. Sure,
because you got to have some context. You'd have to go back and spend 6 hours of your life watching the others.
I got enough. I got enough walking on furry feet with the first
Lord of the Rings
trilogy.
Sure,
so
of course.
That was it. But yeah, so that's trying to think of what else is.
Well, what else we got here? Of course, the Hunger Games.
Yeah, Hunger Games coming out around Thanksgiving.
Yep.
That's a solid franchise that I think has been a little bit smarter than the typical YA. Certainly smarter than the Twilight stuff.
Yeah.
Or any of the knockoffs that have taken place, like Mortal Instruments and Beautiful Creatures and all these things, but they tried to do the same kind of take a popular YA book, stick some pinup ready teenagers or 20-somethings who can pass as teenagers.
Right.
In
If this was television, they'd all be 30 years old playing 17.
Yeah. So it's but that I'm a Jennifer Lawrence fan.
Yeah.
From the start.
Absolutely.
Too, so except I still can't understand what she was ever doing with that guy from Coldplay. But that's okay. That's neither. I'm here for you, Jennifer. I'm here.
Rosewater. John Stewart's film.
movie.
I saw that in Toronto, actually.
What did you think? I haven't talked to anybody who saw it.
I thought it was very.
Yeah.
It was a good story, and it was put together well, but it just wasn't. For a guy stuck in prison and you're waiting for him to get out of prison, it didn't feel that dramatic. If that makes any sense. You think prison could be more. There's more something there.
It seems like a lot for someone to bite off for a first film effort.
Yeah.
And especially when it's someone like Jon Stewart, who, even though he's politically conscious, of course, and can be very serious on occasions talking about it, still essentially has that kind of court jester type of persona.
Yeah, there's one moment in the film I won't give away that's actually just a funny moment where you've got that serious situation and you use humor to break the moment that I really enjoyed and that I really liked. So when you get a chance to see it, you'll know what I'm talking about there.
Well, they're starting to send out those screener DVDs now, so I'm sure I've got about a stack of 15 or 20 now.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what you think of it. But my opinion was that it was kind of okay. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the environment of watching it at Toronto. During the festival and everything.
I like Bernal. Gael Garcia.
Yeah,
Bernal.
the acting was great. All the acting was really good in it. But just as an overall story, it was just felt middle of the road. So there's a lot to look forward to. A lot coming up as far as films go in the holiday season here, and as far as Oscar season goes. And thank you, Steve, for taking the time out of your day to sit here with us today. And thank you for watching our second annual St. Petersburg-Clearwater Film Commission podcast, the lovely downtown St. Petersburg area here with us and at the Birchwood. So if you need anything from our office, be sure to check us out and check Steve out online, TampaBayTimes.com, TampaBay.com.
I could see him filming like Scarface 2 up here.
Scarface 2.
Tony Montana Jr. just overlooking his realm. This is a film right here.
Absolutely. Thanks very much.